Hello and welcome to the RWU Weekly Rail and Labor News Update. Each week, RWU brings you the news of what is happening in rail labor and in the rail industry in both North America and around the world. We monitor several different sources of news and try to highlight the most important stories of the week, focusing on issues of concern to railroad workers and our allies in the labor movement and the larger community. The update is published weekly on our website, railroadworkersunited.org, and you can sign up to have it delivered straight to your email. We're fortunate to have Greg record an audio version as well. He is a Solidarity member of RWU, a voice actor, and a member of SAG-AFTRA. We hope you find each week's news and information useful. If so, please share it with your coworkers, friends, and colleagues. If you have a story we should highlight, please forward the article and a link to raillabornews@gmail.com. Thank you and enjoy.
This is the RWU Weekly News Digest, number 30, for release July 22, 2025, summarizing this week's rail and labor news in the transportation world. And please go to the website at www.railroadworkersunited.org for more complete coverage. The Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern discussing a merger. According to the Associated Press, the UP and NS in merger talks that would create the largest railroad in North America to connect the East and West Coast. The discussions began during the first quarter of this year, although neither railroad will comment. It would combine the largest and the smallest of the country's 6 major Class I freight railroads. Within the industry, widespread debate over such a merger and whether the Surface Transportation Board, even though those regulators improved a deal 2 years ago that combined Canadian Pacific with Kansas City Southern for $31 billion, whether or not they'll go forward with this merger approval. And how the railways will fix the future from the high-speed rail allowance this week. Engineer and writer Gareth Dennis from the UK discussing a new book about how the railways will fix the future in a webinar that was previewed here on the RWU Weekly News Digest. You can now see more coverage. He looks at the history of railways, including the role they've played in extraction and exploitation, but focuses on the power to tackle issues facing us today. Looking toward the future, topics for discussion include lessons from global railway operations, what works best long term, and what it might mean in the United States. Unifor has ratified their contract with Via Rail. Council 4000 and Local 100 signed on to a new 3-year collective bargaining agreement with Via Rail Canada. The agreement, with a 3% annual wage increase, pension improvements, and 100% employer match, that is, with improved benefits and front-loaded sick days with a payout option for unused days. Unifor officials said in a press release this agreement will run through December 31st, 2027. Negotiators could not reach a tentative agreement before a federally mandated reconciliation of May 31st in Canada. However, it was reached prior to a June 22nd potential strike date, approved by the Unifor members. Well, the Federal Railroad Administration under Trump has revoked federal funds for California high-speed rail. Irony here, of course, is Trump had called during his 3 previous presidential campaign runs for the U.S. to move forward with high-speed rail development. In addition to canceling $4 billion slated for California high-speed rail, the new FRA director, I should say the new transportation secretary, directed the FRA to review other obligated and unobligated grants related to the California high-speed rail project. The U.S. Department of Transportation will also consult with the U.S. Department of Justice on the finding of the FRA's recent compliance review, which included potentially clawing back funding related to the project and other potential issues, according to a U.S. DOT press release. In the meantime, California vowing to fight. There's a link on the story. You can click there to find out more. The MTA has set ridership and on-time performance records in 2025's first half. Metropolitan Transportation Authority achieved record-breaking ridership and on-time performance with New York City Transit, Long Island Railroad, and the Metro North Railroad in the first 6 months of 25. Subway ridership up 8% over last year's levels, Long Island Railroad 9%, and Metro North 6%. Meanwhile, links on this story about the Amtrak Borealis train ridership getting up to 250,000 and more. The NTSB has issued preliminary report on the rail death at an Alabama steel plant back on June 16th. Fairfield Southern Company employee was involved in the fatality there, where a remote switching control incident caused the death of the operator during switching work at the U.S. Steel Flint Ridge Yard in Fairfield, Alabama. The employee was a footboard yard master riding a lead car in a shoving move from track 1 to track 4. The lead car passed a section of track with close clearances from rail cars on the adjacent track 3. At some point, that footboard yardmaster called for the radio control operator to stop. The operator placed the train into emergency braking. The injured employee requested medical assistance. Services were dispatched, but he died while being transported to a nearby hospital. NTSB did not identify those involved, but a local news report said Michael Dwayne Townsend, 39 years old, had died from blunt force injuries. And the STSB has issued a final report on a 2024 injury to Norfolk Southern conductor in Norfolk, Virginia. Trains Magazine's story of last week talks about how the conductor suffered serious injuries in an accident in Norfolk, Virginia, when he didn't confirm rolling stock was stationary before working in the path of a free-rolling car, and NS operating rules did not explicitly address the need to do so. The final report by the NTSB came on July 15th. A crew switching coal hoppers at the Lamberts Point Yard made multiple attempts to couple one car to a string of 19 behind the locomotive. The last of those, 20th car rolled upgrade, and the conductor asked the engineer to stop, apply three-step protection to prevent the train from moving. Less than a minute later, that conductor, struck by the loose car, had rolled back downgrade. NTSB investigators discovered that last car on the string number 19 had a defective coupler and prevented it from successfully coupling to the 20th car. An update, meanwhile, from the CPKC. They're denying KCS wrongdoing as the rail union polls members on strike. The CPKC union is conducting a strike poll of members, claiming that the railroad took advantage of a service crisis to make workplace job changes on the troubled Kansas City Southern. The International Association of Sheet Metal, Air, Rail, and Transportation Workers Smart TD Local 457 General Committee of Adjustment polling their members on this vote. General Chairman Samuel Hobjohn confirmed in a brief phone interview with Freight Waves this past weekend, and the results of the poll are expected early this week. An email signed by union members of Local 781, obtained by Freight Waves, said the railroad was using the service crisis to cut jobs and reduce some employees' working hours, in a story that we covered last week. The NTSB also ruling that a CSX conductor trainee death illustrated broader safety and training issues. A 2023 incident in Baltimore, the regulator says, an indication of broader safety and training gaps in the industry. In the June 26-23 incident, an individual in Phase 2 of conductor training was killed when he fell from an intermodal rail car doing a shoving move at the Seagirt Marine Terminal, struck by the train he had been riding. The NTSB report said their investigation found the trainee was in an unsafe riding position, leaving him vulnerable to slipping and falling into the train's path. That's the latest. Go to the website or our email webpage delivery every Tuesday morning for more complete coverage at www.railroadworkersunited.org. I'm Greg Giorgio, a Solidarity member of RWU. Please be safe out there and stay strong.